My name is Jess Heitner, and I am the Director of Communication and Philanthropy at TeachUNITED for our U.S. region. I am joined here today with one of our expert coaches, Megan Antal, and two of our program participants from Henry W. Moore School, Becky Wing and Hannah Withy. Megan, do you mind introducing yourself first, and then we'll hear from Becky and Hannah?
Absolutely. My name is Megan Antal, and I'm an instructional coach for the U.S. with TeachUNITED. I've been in education probably for around 15 years now. I started as an educator in rural New Mexico, and since then have relocated to Durham, North Carolina, where I'm currently with TeachUNITED. So I'm excited to be here today.
Thanks, Megan.
Excellent. And I'm Becky Wing. I'm the principal of the Moore School. I've been in this role for 6 years and in education overall for about 30 years now. And this is this is an exciting program, and I'm excited to talk with you about it today.
And I'm Hannah Withy. This is my 5th year teaching. I started at Henry Moore School teaching 5th and 6th grade, and luckily had the opportunity to switch down to 2nd grade, which is much more my jam. And I've been teaching 2nd grade for 4 years, and I am obsessed with everything TeachUNITED. So I'm happy to be here.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you both. And Becky, I think congratulations are in order. Yes, you were named the New Hampshire Elementary Principal of the Year.
Yes, thank you very much.
That's so exciting. Yeah, we're so excited to have you all here just to chat more about your community, more about the school community, and then your experience with TeachUNITED. So I'll just jump right in. I know Moore School is located in Candia, New Hampshire, kind of the southeast part of the state, correct? Kind of not too far from Manchester. Okay. Becky, do you mind just telling me a little bit more about the community, kind of what's life like for the adults and the students in the community there in Candia?
Sure. We are, as you said, we're a small rural community just outside of Manchester, which is our largest city in the state. We have a population of just over 4,000. Most of the adults in the community really work outside of Candia. There's not a lot of, work opportunities here. There are a few significant businesses. Otherwise, we have a great youth athletic league for our kids. A golf course. Charming Fair Farm is a big hit here in town, and we used to have a water park, but it's now closed.
Oh.
But so we're really, we're a small school too of just 270 students from K through 8. So we're just a nice little town nestled over here in New Hampshire. I think we face a lot of the same challenges that most small rural towns are facing, right now. For us, certainly, every year I get really excited to see what our kindergarten numbers are going to be coming into the school. Hannah's shaking her head because I really get excited when we get good numbers, because we do worry about declining enrollment. Our town has people who have been here for a long time. So there's not a lot of new families coming into town. So certainly enrollment is something that we get concerned about and are really keeping an eye on.
One of my favorite parts about Henry Moore School is that it's K-8. And so you see kids from, kindergarten that walk by all the way to 8th grade. And so I just feel like everybody knows everybody in like the absolute best way, which just makes it just feel so welcoming. Because we're so small, when we have data meetings, and Megan, we talked about this in the last Zoom that we have with teachers across New Hampshire, how Henry Moore School is so meaningful when we talk about data, because we don't have a lot of kids. We focus really on individual needs. We go through every single kid and talk about exactly where they're at and exactly what we're doing. So there's not a lot of generalized, like this is what the grade is doing. It's very individual based, which I think you probably wouldn't find in a non-rural community.
For sure. Yeah, that's an incredibly interesting perspective, and one that I think has a lot of positives. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Becky, how about you for leading in the small community?
I think for me, I really get to know the families as a whole, and not just the students that are passing through the school. Both being small and being in such a rural community, many of our parents went to school here.
Yeah.
And some of their parents went to school here. There's just a real sense of pride around the school and the community. And that's just something I just feel really lucky to be able to be a part of.
Several teachers I've worked with, they're like, I chose to stay in this rural setting for 20 plus years, even in the same school, because I taught a student who then became a parent. Now I'm going to teach their kids. And I'm really feeling that multi-generational impact, which is something really neat and unique and very cool.
We really want to be a model school for personalizing learning for students. And we talk about having a high moral commitment to the learning of all of our students and really making sure that we continue to have a collaborative learning culture. And we talk about our expectations around that. That we are always learning from each other, that we're monitoring our progress and we're making adjustments. And that really has to do with not just instruction, but it has to do with anything that we choose to do as a school community. So for me, that's really the goal, is to really foster that collaborative learning culture within our building.
I was just going to add on to that too, that so my very first year here when I taught 5th and 6th grade was 2019 to 2020. So we got hit with the pandemic like year one, fun time. But I feel like because there was, social distancing, all of the things, Becky specifically, and the school as a whole has one of my biggest takeaways instructionally from our moral and visions and things is to focus on that small group instruction, and how we can, because there really wasn't the ability to do that for a whole year and a half ish, of how we can kind of use that time and intervention. And during data meetings, that's one of my favorite parts about data meetings, is talking with the reading specialist and having them say, is there any resources you need that we can give to you? And so that, I think Becky also provides opportunities to kind of execute that collaborative learning environment for us.
Our director of student services, who first said, hey, there's this grant out there for Teach United. I'm like, well, what is it? And listening to her description, it just sounded like a perfect fit for us. Our vision of personalizing learning, this collaborative learning culture, right? We are actively using data to make, decisions. And it just sounded like it was a great way to give teachers just more tools and the tools that they needed to be able to promote that sense of belonging, that higher student engagement, the personalizing piece, voice and choice, developing confidence in themselves, as educators. So my first impression was, yay, this sounds perfect for us. And which, as we're moving through, I'm finding it is.
I would say first of all, I was excited right off the bat because this just sounds like everything I've heard about it was just sounding great. But I remember Becky made an emphasis on how we're going to work with a coach and we can really make it our own to fit the needs of our school. So just having that put out there like that, it didn't seem like a regular professional development opportunity where it's like this canned thing. It really felt like we were going to be able to make it our own, which we have. So just kind of knowing that up front was really cool. And the fact that our very first, I guess it was kind of like our first assignment. Our first big thing that I remember talking about was our mission statement and what we stand for and what we believe in. And that I'm a very reflective person. So just being able to kind of use those parts of my brain to start off on this was just such a positive way to start the experience. We had some support from specific academic areas of meetings, and we have keys to literacy training we've had. So I have had that, but Megan just seems like this overall how you approach being a teacher type of resource, which I don't feel like I've really had before. So
that's really cool. Yeah. And then Becky, I guess, have you had kind of a similar experience with Jason, who did your coaching, or was that kind of new for you?
It wasn't really new for me. But what I really liked was that it was understood that they're the demands of the job of being an administrator and how to balance all of that with getting what we needed from the program. And I think Hannah referenced it too. It's not like a one size fits all. So it was nice to be able to, reach out to the coach and have conversation when it was the right time for me.
Megan, I'm just curious from your perspective, having coaching calls with so many different teachers across the state of New Hampshire and in other communities, just kind of what do you get out of these as well? And kind of how do you then infuse that into your other conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the coaching calls is one aspect of the TeachUNITED program, which I think is really unique and one of my favorite aspects, to be honest, because I feel like it allows me to know the teachers on a much more personal level. So we're not just giving these kind of one-hit PD presentations where I don't really get to know the teachers I'm working with, but it really allows me to dive in and get to know the teachers and their students and what matters to them. And I think it's very important because as we know with our students, there's students who have different interests, they have different ability levels, and the same is for teachers. And so having that coaching call aspect or having that coaching aspect to the program really allows us to personalize to the teachers, to get to know what their interests are, to get to know what's happening in their classroom, and to really individualize and shape that program accordingly, which I think is really special.
How has it been kind of different having that tiered approach where Becky, you've gone through it as an administrator, you have your teacher leaders kind of going through this now, but it's all rooted in kind of the same strategies and approach. Just how has that kind of experience been different for you as a school as a whole?
I think for me, knowing ahead of time what the teachers were going to be doing and learning has made it easier for me to have those conversations with them as they're going through the program. I think these teachers are talking about this in such a positive way too, that it's intriguing others at this point in the building, which I think that their positive experience is really going to nicely lead us into year two. And I feel like when we're moving into year two is when I'm really going to get to step in and use everything that I learned as I was going through the program and be an even bigger support for really making some of that change happen. And I think that's unique, to number one, to have this last over the 2-year period, and it will obviously go beyond as well, but maybe officially for 2 years. I think that's not something that you get out of most professional development experiences.
To add on to that, from my experience, I enjoy when we're having some other professional meeting and I'm able to make connections between like, oh, I learned this in TeachUNITED. I want to use this. I think I could do and whatever. And there's been many times where I'm able to have that experience, but then I could see Becky nodding over there. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about because I learned the same thing too. And that's also a new experience for me. I feel like there are other experiences where like, maybe we were in the same room kind of getting the same thing and we took different things out of it, but to know that Becky's spent all this time learning it in a different way. And I agree what Becky just said about the impact that it will have years later down the line of just that trickle effect, I think is very meaningful.
And I've definitely seen some of the components that Hannah and some of the other teachers have implemented in their classrooms that have had a positive impact. I've seen choice boards, teachers using metacognitive strategies, some of the concept maps, and of course, Hannah's favorite student success files. I think she talks about those whenever she gets the opportunity.
Yes, I do. I will tell people, you don't even have to ask me. Another thing that I took, what was really early on, kind of talking about like your mission statement and growth mindset and things, how we approach mistakes in the classroom. I feel like TeachUNITED has completely like changed my entire world for this because I struggle with making mistakes. And so I always struggle with like helping students realize it's okay to make mistakes when I struggle with that myself. Like that's a hard buy-in to, and just something about celebrating mistakes and growth mindset. I'm doing the favorite mistake. That was it. I'm just going to go to Megan. Remembered it. The favorite mistake thing. My kids have a mistake song that we sing. So we celebrate mistakes through song, which is very typical for my style of teaching. But we always go mistake, mistake. Oh yeah. And it's like one of their favorite things ever. But I feel like that has helped me figure out, specifically with math instruction. I feel like for a while I was very concerned about getting them the right strategy to the right answer to just making sure I did it right. And now I like let them kind of guide the conversation and see what mistakes they make and what they catch. And it's just changed the way that they are able to work through math problems altogether as a whole group. So
one thing that really sticks out in my mind is just the power of student agency and reflection. I've really seen that increase across the board at many schools, and more school being one of them, really putting the students in the driver's seat for their own education. So allowing that choice to actively be a part of instruction, to make reflection very active. So students are really actively thinking about that metacognition, really thinking about what next steps they need to take, in their own learning. And that's often, as teachers, one of the hardest things to know how to do and one of the hardest things to implement. So it's very impressive to see that actively happening in classrooms, and just seeing the ways that really strong instructional practice has grown even more to give students that agency to truly drive their own learning. It's been very impressive.
We've done a good job of using data in the past, and we've done okay with the growth mindset piece. But our challenge was really the engagement and personalization. So I think that this really is a great first step for us in, bringing that into focus, and really being able to have some highly successful strategies, in our tool belts, that we can start passing along to all of the teachers, not just those who are part of the program this year. So I'm looking forward to, taking this step, and what's to come.
I think another cool thing is that when teachers think about professional development, sometimes it just feels like it's another thing on our plates. And this could not be further from the truth, I feel like, for the Teach United. And so I feel like there's been a lot of things where instead of being like, oh, I've never tried this at all before, I'll just implement. I mean, there has been a couple of things. I shouldn't say there hasn't been, but there's quite a few things where I'm like, oh, I'm just going to change it a little bit the way that I'm doing it. I've done my opinion writing coffee house. That's also one of my favorite things ever, for several years now. But this was the first time that I just tweaked it a little bit to provide students more choice. And it's hard to figure out how to, especially in the younger grades, when kids get stuck and they need a little bit of support. They oftentimes will just sit and wait and don't know what to do. So providing a visual choice board for them of, okay, you need help on this part, but there's other things you can be doing in the meantime. That changed the entire dynamic of the writing time in my class. And then I think one of my one-on-one coaching calls with Megan, we talked about these treasure maps that I had made with my kids. And instead of just saying, okay, you here are the directions, you have to measure this, to this, and that's 5 inches. I had, you can do inches or centimeters, you can do whole numbers or half numbers. I can give you the directions or you can make up your own. And it was really split. That was one of the coolest things that I think would be cool to see other teachers in other classrooms going forward. Was I kind of had an idea of who I thought might want more directed instruction and who would want to be more independent, but it was a 50-50, 6 wanted this, 6 wanted this. And I was so glad that I was able to, with Teach United in the back of my mind, give them an intentional choice of how to proceed with their learning. And I think incorporating conversations like that with other teachers and collaborating and helping them understand that it's not just this completely separate thing, just change a little bit of what you're doing can make such a big difference.
Do you feel like you're enjoying teaching more after participating?
Oh my gosh, yes. I was trying to figure out how I could say this in a really professional, polite way. Last year, I had a very challenging class, challenging year, challenging everything. And part of it is I just have a wonderful class that's a little bit easier to manage this year. But I was kind of on that edge in year 4. I was like, I don't know if I can do this forever. This is a really low point in my career. And I literally was like, this changed everything for me. And it just has rejuvenated. I have all these, I feel like I, for the first time, feel like I owe it to myself to take everything that I've learned and go forward and see what else I can do. So, which I would not have had without this program and Megan and everybody.
From those teachers who are participating in this, it's just a different energy, I guess, when you walk into their classrooms. And I think, the way that Hannah described that's really what I'm feeling, I think, in all of those classrooms. And the students feel it too. They know, they can feel that, they didn't necessarily have, well, although in one case they had that same teacher the year before. And I think that the students who are having the teacher for a second year are seeing a difference. And I think that they are more engaged in what is happening in the classroom. And that's a middle school classroom. So yeah, I would describe it as just a different energy.
would you recommend participating in
Yes,
the Teach United?
yes, yes. Sorry, you can finish.
No, I love it. You didn't even let
Most
me
definitely.
finish.
And the thing is, it's not, you think about some of the strategies really are just basic good practice, right? Some of them are things we need to be reminded of. So it's a valuable experience for both new teachers and teachers who have been, in the practice for, 20 some years. I think there's something for everyone to learn.
One of the other, kind of on the same lines of creating your own mission statement, there was an assignment about reflecting on how you are engaged as an adult and reflecting back on your experiences. And I remember I loved thinking back to like when I was in college, taking a college class, what I loved when my teacher showed enthusiasm and just like different things like that, that I feel like that's a huge part of this program is like reflecting on your own experiences and then talking and collaborating with other people. That I think that's what makes it valuable.
That's great to hear. I do. And I think, like Megan said, your teachers came in with such great instructional practices already. And so to your point of being able to just reflect on that, or sometimes you need a reminder, these are just good things to kind of have in place. So glad to hear that it's not just another thing on your plate, because that's not ever what we want it to be. Yeah. Well, thank you all for your time today. We really appreciate it. It's been wonderful getting to know more about you. I would love to stay in touch in the future too. Once you get into year 2, kind of hear how things are going, that would be wonderful. And just wish you the best of luck in the rest of this year.